Good morning and welcome to another interview with author KM Cookie. You may have seen her in an earlier interview where we talked about her book, but today is a more niche interview where we talk about her story as to how she became a writer she is today and what are some of the memorable things that she's encountered on this journey. KM, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm really excited. I love BookBase and what they do and the information they provide to people. So I'm really honored to be a guest here.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Starting with our first question, I know in our last interview you mentioned that you did take a course that helped you kind of cement a lot of the things that you thought about when it came to writing. But I wanted to ask more in specific, what made you feel like that you really wanted to be a writer, and how did that course kind of further cement your belief that you were meant to write?
So I've always dreamed of writing a book. I mean, since I was a child, and I actually was in a class, advanced writing class in Michigan, and my classmate was Paul Feig he's kind of famous. He's written Bridesmaids and Freaks and Geeks and all kinds of stuff. So he's actually became very famous. But him and I were the two best writers in the class. His were funny, and mine were a little bit more dark. And so anyway, so I've always wanted to write, but what happened is I was approaching a milestone birthday, and I decided that I have to figure out how to write, not just that I want to write. And so what changed was I read the book Atomic Habits, and that book really helped me to understand that I needed to have my identity as a writer, not somebody who wanted to write.
Mm.
So actually, I'm going to show you something that's kind of cool. I don't know if you can see it on here. Let's see. Oh yeah, you
Yes,
can.
I
You can.
see it. Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I did. I got all of these crystals. Okay. I have a
Mhm.
lot of crystals in the house. So I got crystals, and then I put 30 of them on the tier, on the bottom tier.
Right.
And then every time I wrote, whether it was a page, a word, an hour, whatever, I had to write something. I would take a crystal and I would put it from the bottom to the top. And I would do that, and I would pick the crystals based on how hard I worked. So if I worked really hard, then I would do like a big crystal like this one. But then if I kind of called it in, then I would do like a little baby crystal like this one.
Yeah.
And so that's what really helped me to change my identity and my mindset. And once I did that, I was writing, and the stuff it was terrible. It was crappy. I tried to do nonfiction. It was awful. I tried to do um, uh, memoir. It was terrible. It was boring. I tried to do all these different things, and none of them really worked. But I didn't give up, and I kept on trying and trying and trying. And then at UCLA, the certificate program, I took a class by Tiffany Deckert, and it's called Write a Novel in 10 Weeks. And I took that class, and I felt like I was a lot older than everybody. I was moving a lot slower than they were. But I finally, the teacher said, she goes, it doesn't matter. Because when I wouldn't have confidence. She would say, yeah, you are older and maybe you do move slower, but you have more life experiences. So everybody is bringing something to the table. And it made me have more confidence in, okay, I could tell a story. So, and I didn't write a novel in 10 weeks, but I got the beginning, the middle, and the end done. And then from there, I kept working and working for 3 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like your visual of the tray with the crystals and stuff because it kind of reminds me of like journaling or when people write notes to themselves and they hang it on like the walls or like on the mirror. I think there's something really powerful about having a way to visualize what your goals are because not only does it motivate you to keep on going, but it also keeps you accountable when you're not able to do it. And it kind of keeps that mental like check of like, hey, like if you're not going to put the crystal in the tray right now, that's okay. But just know that you have these many crystals and you have that many on the second level. You want to keep on putting as much on the top as you can. And I like how you do like different sizes as well. Like, I think, with writing, if there's one thing I've learned from talking to so many authors and stuff with BookBase, it's that like consistency will always be a moment of like really intense writing followed by like a period of like nothing at all. And like the fact that you're kind of flexible with it, where you're able to do a big chunk of work or a small chunk of work. It doesn't really matter what the level of work, like, how much you're doing. It's just a matter of that you're doing it consistently, because a word could be, one word down one day is one word less you have to put in another day, and it could always build into something more and more. And that's awesome. I did hear about that book, Atomic Habits. I have heard about a lot of people changing their lives because of it, and I know that it's one of the biggest like self-help books of like today's time. So that's really cool how reading that gave you kind of a better structure on how to take things to the next level. And yeah, that's cool how, like, you also took a writing course. I think that writing is one of those things where, I don't know. I see writing kind of like music, where it's like when you want to be a writer, it's like somebody saying, I want to be a musician. But it's like
Right.
people never talk about going to music school to become a musician.
Right.
But, going to these courses, I do think that there is a very powerful fact in that, where, you go to these courses, not only are you talking to other writers and you're in a room full of people that want to learn, but you do kind of study the discipline and a little bit of the I guess the scholarly side of writing. I guess you learn a lot about, grammar, sentence structure, how to, keep someone's attention fixed on a piece of work, when to drop in the conflict, when to do resolution and stuff. And I think if you understand a really strong structure of things, it really does allow you to further enhance your creativity, because then you know what you can manipulate to create the story that you want. And
Right.
that's really
Right.
cool that, with your story, it shows a lot of, not only a lot of consistency, but it shows a lot of hard work. It really does sound like you did all this to become the person that you wanted to be with this book and even to write. And, it does show in this book, I think, for a debut novel, for you to talk about, Renaud, Belize, Terry, and these characters and this culture and the way that you do in this book. It's, yes, it's your first novel, but it doesn't come off as a number one, like as your first debut work. It really does come off as someone that wants to put in the energy in things. I guess this kind of leads to my next question. I know you did talk about how the people of Belize really took you in, but I guess in more specific, what was it about Belizean culture that you really loved, and what was that aha moment where you knew that you really wanted to focus on this particular story as it relates to you in some capacity?
So the book itself is a love letter to the people of Belize. And they embraced me as a young woman when I was in my 20s. I
Hmm.
was a transplant that moved from Michigan to Los Angeles. I was alone and I didn't really know anybody. They shared their culture with me, and I was always fascinated by how interesting their culture was. Their their lives, their homes, their hearts, their perspective. And I realized at some point when I was around them that my American perspective of that there's only one way to do things and it's the way we've always done them was
Hmm.
so wrong. And that there was actually multiple ways to do something. And if you're open to hearing another perspective, then you can really learn a lot more than you expected. And
Yeah.
so their willingness to quarrel, they love each other one day and they're mad the next. They really were authentically welcomed me into their family, and they trusted me with their stories. And that was just I just always was really interested, and I would, you know, either commit it to memory or sometimes I wrote stuff down about the little stories. And the fact that Hummingbird Highway is a real place in Belize, and I just actually came back from a trip to Belize like literally 2 weeks ago, and it was so amazing to be there as an author and to meet the various people who really love the story, and they're like, oh, you're telling this story and you're talking about Hummingbird Highway, and the little phrasing that I would use, like a lot of the Belize stories and the like some of the mythology. Anyways, I was really humbled to be there as a author and not just as a visitor this time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so at the end of the day, it's a love story
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
believe.
That's awesome. I mean, I was gonna ask you about your trip, but before we go into that, I wanted to ask more in particular, like, how did you meet this Belizean community as someone that just came to Los Angeles from Michigan? Like, were they your neighbors, or were they like in a local area around you where you were just willing to just kind of jump into it? That just really sounds so unique, like for someone to come from another state and then finding a community of like, such uniqueness, and then you kind of find yourself in there. Like that's such a unique story.
So I was I was actually a part of a Belizean family. So I was they welcomed me, and there's actually a very large diaspora community of Belizeans in Los Angeles, as well as Chicago, as well as Miami, as well as New Orleans. There's multiple places. And if you've never been there, there's this Belize restaurant called Little Belize in Inglewood, and
Mhm.
they have events all the time, and their food is so good. That's where I always go to eat my oxtail. um, I never forget that. So anyway, so I was like literally a part of the family, and they still, every time I see any of them, I still am treated like I am their family.
Wow, that is really cool. That's awesome. When you write a story, that's like a love letter to an experience that you had with a community that you love so much. Is it more like when you're writing it, is it intimidating because it's like you want to do justice and you want to like make sure that you're doing a good job, or is it more of an exciting project because it's like, oh, I get to finally express everything that was in my head? Like, what were your thoughts when you were writing this book, especially since it was so personal to you, as you were saying?
So my thoughts were, I really, both, actually, it was both things.
Hmm.
So I was really tried to be careful about being accurate, but then a lot of things were like stories in my head, and so I really had to take um take perspective of what what was in my head, and then how to tell that story in a way that is still authentic to Belizeans, but then Americans could understand it too. So all of those things were made it complicated.
Yeah.
But but what I will say that I feel good about now is a few people have read it. I had cultural consultants actually read it before I released the book. Well, before the final book was done, when it was just the pre-release, and I did have to make some changes. There were some things that were inaccurate and need to be corrected. So thank goodness they were able to read it, and I'm very thankful to them for doing that. And then but what I'm the most happy about is the people that have read it. It tells them, even though they're from Belize, it reminds them, it like takes them home. So I captured that part of it because they felt like, oh, it reminded me of being back in Belize. So I feel like in that way I did a good job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've never heard someone reach out to a cultural consultant for getting more of a review on their book. And I think that also just again shows the effort that you put in for writing. I think a lot of people, I think if they want to write a story about something similar to yours, I don't think they go that far as to getting cultural consultants, going to the community, asking questions and trying to learn as much as they can. I think a lot of people just write and then they see where it takes them. But I think the amount of care and effort that you put into your story, I think it really shows. Like, you did the research, it comes from a genuine experience that you had when you were younger. But then at the same time, it's like when you're writing this, it's like, you're not trying to say something in a way that isn't accurate to what you're trying to represent. And I think that's really cool. And with all of that all in mind, what was it like now going to Belize as being known as an author rather than someone that was visiting? Like, what was this trip like? Because I know you were telling me in the last interview that you were really looking forward to this trip.
Yeah. So this well, first of all, I just want to say this, that the people of Belize, I the reason it was so important to get that cultural consultant is because it's not Belize is not my story. It's like I just had the honor of being around it and
Right.
being fascinated by it. But I'm not a Belizean, and I never wanted to make it seem like I'm taking somebody else's story.
Right.
So that's why it was really important for me to involve and double check and say, is this okay? And I'm sure maybe I still miss, I mean, I'm sure I did. I probably missed the mark on some things, but I never wanted to seem like it was my story to tell. It was my stories that were shared with me that I told. So but not mine per se.
Mhm.
Um, but anyways, so going to Belize though, as an author, it was just really wonderful. So first of all, my girlfriend went with me, and it was her a milestone birthday for her, and she is one of the first people who read the book, and she was so excited to see some of the different places, and to also feel the genuine warmth of the people there. I met somebody who his son takes pictures of birds, and I bought all the hummingbird pictures from him that he had taken. And I met somebody else who's going to be taking the book on a journey down Hummingbird Highway. So I left it with her, and she's going to be filming the book going down Hummingbird Highway. So I'm really excited about that. And then the actual diaspora, the actual event that I went to,
Yeah.
I sold out of all of my books. And I also met two different bookstore that are in Belize. One is Bakabush Books. The other one is Bricks and Stones. I think it's Brick, and both of those bookstores are going to be carrying my book in the future.
Wow.
And then this person, I actually met somebody who supports a literacy project that is where they support buying backpacks for Belize. And so all of those are new relationships that I have. And then the most exciting thing about the trip was right now we're in the process of doing the audiobook, but it's a very long, lengthy process. So the book itself is more than 12 hours long. And I have the characters I have, I think, 7 different actors with their different voices in it.
Mhm.
So at the very end of the book is a song. And the song is, we recorded, or my friend Misha, who was also the cultural consultant, she performed the song for the very first time at the Bliss Institute in Belize, and it was a big hit. Everybody loved the song. It was so pretty.
Oh, that is
So
awesome.
yeah, so hearing the words that I heard in my head, to hear them for real, and to see the people that were interested and were excited about the book, that was a new milestone in my own life as an author, that really warmed my heart.
That's awesome. Congratulations on all those milestones. That is insane for you to, not only go to the country that you base the book on, but to also to feel like, you're a brand new person in the sense where it's like from a visitor, you went to an author, you connected with different bookstores, you sold out on all your books that when you went there, you're making connections with people. And I think that just shows like just how, not only how rigorous the journey can be for being an author and networking and creating those connections, but also how exciting it could be to meet all these people and, to say things like, oh, we have an audiobook on the way, or, the original ideas of the stuff that I had in the book that I'm creating, it's actually becoming more of a thing. And, we're able to record things, we're able to record music. And I think that really will, up the level on that experience of Song of Hummingbird Highway. I remember reading it and I felt so, invested into the book. But I think for people that get the audiobook and are able to listen to the music and the voices of the people that are actually from Belize, like you mentioned in the last interview, that are willing to, actually speak the words of, the language that's in the book, it's really cool. And I think that really shows, again, like just the amount of effort that goes into this book. What you said before, you talked about your trip, about how you're not Belizean, so you wanted it to be accurate. It's not your story, but you do want to be, you are the person sharing it. I think that's like the proper way to actually go about sharing stories like these, where I think if you are going to tell the story of somebody else, I do think that there is a standard of like, okay, like, you should be willing to communicate and see, what are some things that you don't understand that you might have to look into more? What are some things that you do know already that you can just kind of put in? Or, how many people do you want to share it to kind of get an authentic review about, hey, this is how the language really is, or this is how some of the wording is, this is how people really act when you go to Belize. That's, it's really important for people to acknowledge that if you are going to share someone else's story, you should be willing to do the research and put in the work to make sure that you're conveying it properly. So, that's really cool. And I can tell that you put in a lot of an energy into it. I know I see the picture of the hummingbird on your banner. I see the book on your banner as well. And I know you brought this as well to the last interview, but I wanted to ask about the significance of the shoes, because I also see them on your banner as well. So I wanted to ask actually, why do you carry these shoes to all these events, and what does it really mean for you to have these heirlooms with you as you go on your journey?
So, one thing I have to tell you that I forgot to say is that I also got to meet the Belize ambassador as well.
Oh,
So, anyways, yeah,
snap! That is so
and
cool.
the beauty queens that are there. So yeah, it was, yeah, forgot to mention that. So,
Oh my gosh.
any so what happened is the book, my shoes, which are right here, they're very near at all times. So what happened is when I started writing, starting having to promote the book
Mhm.
in the pre-book and so forth, and building a social media presence, I had a hard time because in my whole life I never really was that much with pictures. I didn't really have a lot of pictures. I wasn't comfortable. I'm still not that comfortable in front of a camera. And so I was planning this sparkle party to celebrate that I'm going to write the book. And I was buying gifts for everybody. And I was in a thrift store. And as I was walking out of buying all, I was just buying everything I could that was pink, a pink fluffy, a fluffy ball, a pink purse, a pink scarf, whatever I could find. And as I was walking out, these are the exact ones. Okay.
Wow.
And they were used shoes with little pink stars and some little pink rivets, so with sparkles, and they're exactly my size and 6.5. And so I bought the shoes, and then I started to carry the shoes with me,
Mhm.
not to wear, but to um, but to celebrate the journey. And they it's fun to take pictures of shoes. It's not so much fun taking pictures of me all the time, but it's always fun. No matter how you put the shoes, no matter how you look at them, they're cute.
Yeah.
And so it became a lot more fun to do social media and to take the shoes with me. And then people would say, why are you carrying around those shoes? So it would start conversations that I didn't necessarily have. And on my very first author signing, I forgot my shoes. It was a really busy day, and I was running around, and I forgot my shoes, and I had no confidence. And I'm usually, I'm not really. I have confidence in myself, but that day I didn't. And then I'm like, I have to always carry my shoes with me from now on.
Yeah.
Not because they are. It's just that having them helps me to remember that I'm an author, not somebody trying to write, and that's what they really represent. So I I carry those first shoes around because that was all leading up until the book was published. Once the book was published, then I got these new shoes, which I got them custom made with the hummingbird on one side and the music notes on the other side. And then I have the pink sparkle shoelaces. And so these new shoes are on the journey to the publication. And at some point, when I write another book, when I do my hummingbird um, uh, empowerment seminars that I plan on doing, whatever is the next step, I will probably get another pair of shoes. So I'll have a whole set of shoes through the rest of my life that will all represent my author journey.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think that's really cool, and it's a very interesting solution to, I think, a such a like I think it's such a big concern for a lot of people. Like I think it's so normalized to be scared of like, being in front of a camera, doing social media stuff. Like it's so intimidating. And I know a lot of people, say like, "Oh, like, just like pretend nobody's there or just be yourself." And you hear these words and stuff and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, like this totally isn't working." All these people are looking at me or this camera's on me and I feel all this pressure. You're getting sweaty because you're getting like anxiety and stuff. And when you have like a solution like the shoes and stuff, I think that's really smart because not only is it kind of like a physical memory of like reassurance to make you realize like, yeah, I'm really doing this, but yeah, you're right, like it's also a conversation starter. Like I remember when we first met, you had the shoes, and I remember like I think it was Elias that asked like, "Oh, what are the shoes for?" And that was how we were able to have a conversation about everything and how we learned about your book and you as an author. And yeah, like I think that's great. I think it also shows that you don't need to have a orthodox solution to make the problem go away. Like, you can have whatever solution you need to have to make you become the person you need to be. And I really like how, for some people it doesn't make sense, but for you it does, and that's all that matters. And
Right.
once,
Some people, it doesn't make sense to carry shoes around their
right,
shoulder all the time, but
yeah.
for me, it works.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's all that matters because if it helps you become the author that you need to be and it helps you become the confident person you want to be in front of the camera and stuff, then that's all that matters. And I hope this encourages other people to do the same where it's like, stop looking for what's the most common sense version of a solution for you to get past something. Kind of go out there, experiment, see what really affects your self-esteem, see what really affects your personality to make you feel like you could be the person you want to be. And I think that's also something that's really cool about today's time, especially like with social media outlets like TikTok and stuff. Like I've seen a lot of people do makeup tutorials, I've seen a lot of people do dance tutorials and stuff, and you really see these people record themselves, in a, some, I'm sure they're nervous when they first do it for the first time, but like once they really get into something and they're really expressing something they really care about, you really see them really flare up and really enjoy what they're doing. And I see you doing the same thing with like your shoes and like going to these events and, really fighting your fears with being in front of a camera by attacking it through this way. Like that's so cool. And yeah, I guess I also want to ask like, what is, after all of this, all of the things that you've done as an author, traveling and doing all these events, meeting the ambassador, meeting like, different bookstores to get your book sold, what are some points of advice that you would give to other people that I guess were once in your shoes where they were maybe they're trying to start writing or they really want to get into writing? What would be something that you could possibly offer them as advice if someone were to ask you?
Whether it's writing or whether it's anything else, I think the easiest way is to quote Anne Lamott is a shitty first draft. Nothing is good at first. It's
Mhm.
it's just an idea, a kernel of idea. When I tried to do the writing, it was boring. I had to learn how to structure. I had to really find structure because I'm one of those people that has a brain that is all over the place. I'm a real, very messy thinker, and it's hard to take to for it to be good at first. You have to let it be messy. You have to be okay with it being messy. You have to be okay with it things being out of order, but you keep trying because at the end of the day, whatever you care about is what you do, not what you say. And if you pay attention to what your heart is telling you, and if you're not happy, then what do you need to do different? It's all about doing, because everybody can talk about what they want or what they don't want, but it's sitting down doing it. And in as in James Clear Atomic Habits, it takes 10,000 hours to become good at something.
Mm.
So start putting those hours in, and it's not good at first, but that's okay.
Yeah. Normalize the fact that it's messy, normalize the fact that it's hard, and later on you'll realize that it gets easier as you just keep on doing it. And to do something makes you better. And, you know, it's kind of like a weird, it's like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like a paradox where it's like, you being messy in the beginning is actually what makes you more of a professional than somebody else that, is talking about wanting to do something and seems like they have a really great plan but doesn't do anything about it. Like it's like being messy about it and having a hard time is actually what makes you the person that you want to be in that field. And thank you for sharing that advice. I think that's absolutely true. I think that goes for anything, just like what you said. And I think it's important to speak about the fact that, if it wasn't that hard, then everybody would do it. It'd be so much easier to become the person that you want to be, where it's like, oh, I'll just do this. Bam, I just went viral overnight, or I just got super successful. I don't need to do anything in life. It's like, no, like you have to put in the work. You have to put in that elbow grease to make sure that it all comes out. So, I really appreciate you saying that. And, as someone that's also interested in writing and doing the art stuff and like, wanting to get into this field, that really does speak because, there are moments where it's like you're writing something, it's really hard, and then you start wondering like, is this even for me? Like, is this even something I should be doing if it's this difficult? But I think that's just like the entry, the cost of entry. That's just what it takes to become that person you want to be, is that, yeah, you will have to face these obstacles and learn how to maneuver them because they never go away. You just get better at managing them. And I think that's
Right,
really great. Yeah. Thank you so
right.
much.
Yeah. In fact, those stones that I use that I put from the bottom to the top, now I'm so consistent at writing. So I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning, and then I do my writing from like 5 to 7. Then I get ready for work. Then I can do all the stuff to get ready for work. And I now use the stones for exercising because I don't have to do it for writing anymore because I'm like writing is solid. But I do it for how what I exercise, if I exercise and how much effort I put in, and did I do the extra or did I just do the minimal?
Yeah.
So
No, that's awesome. I like how it's the same device, but it's used for different things. Like you have writing down and now you're applying it to something else. And, that's really great how you're just so consistent with writing. And I was actually going to ask, are you writing your next novel, or are you working on something in the works right now that's going to come out in the future?
so I actually have four things. So one is the audiobook. So you already know that that's in the process.
Yeah.
The other thing is a really good friend of mine from Brazil has done a Portuguese translation of Song of Hummingbird Highway. So we're hoping that that gets picked up by some foreign rights some foreign publishers,
Nice.
because there has been some interest, and she loved the story, and that's why she wanted to do it. And her book is called The Musician, and I loved her story, so we really connected about reading each other's work. And so that's also in the process. And then I'm actually just beginning what's going to be a kind of like a coffee table book with a photographer partner. So as you know, my book had art, music, and words. So this one is going to also have art, music, and words, but it's going to be more heavier on, mine was pretty heavy on the words. It was a long book,
Yeah.
but this is going to be heavier on the photography, and it's going to be another story of pain to empowerment. So
Awesome.
I've just been starting that. So that's the next project I'm working on.
That's very cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And yeah, no, I'm really excited to see that book because you definitely chose some really interesting photos for the book. And I could see how that even furthered the imagery that you were painting for Belize and stuff. And, I know the fascination that you also have with hummingbirds, and, the photography that you chose for that was really beautiful. So yeah, that sounds like a really cool project to look forward to. And I also hope that Portuguese version of the book gets picked up. That sounds like a whole different world with like foreign writing rights and like that whole thing. But that's really cool how people are just so interested in your book to be willing to, participate in the audiobook, create content with you, be able to do translations. Like I really do feel like you're fostering that community of, not only more to get more people involved in the Belizean community, but to also further that story of pain to empowerment, like you mentioned. Like I think that's so important to share, and I think that you're on a great track. Like if you're able to meet the Belizean ambassador after your first book, and you're able to meet like the beauty queens and go to bookstores and go to all these events, like that is awesome. That is such a great feat, and I applaud you for everything that you've done. And yeah, I know this is our second interview, but I really feel like, after these two interviews, I feel like we can get such a great understanding of not only your journey, but also the resilience that goes into writing a book that comes with as much love and affection that you get when you do read this story. So I want to say, Cam Cookie, thank you so much for, not only, coming to us and speaking with us, but being so honest about your journey. I think a lot of people could be very quick to being like, oh yeah, I just did it and that's it. But for you, it's like, you talk about the struggles, you talk about the workshops, the classes you took, the routines, the crystals, and the habits that you created to help you become the person that you are. I think it's really inspiring, and I want to say thank you for sharing all of that. That really means a lot.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I really am so thrilled to just be here and be able to talk about my story. And it's fun in a different way than anything has ever been fun before because you're really sharing your pain. And that's part of being an author, right? It's
Yeah.
like, okay, what's fun about sharing your pain? But what is fun about it is that if anybody out there can get just a nugget of inspiration or think that I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it. And the truth is, anybody can, and that's what boils down to my website is called Are You Creating? Because I believe we can all create whatever it is that we want and manifest the people in our lives, the relationships, the truth, and the connection, all so that it makes the world a better place. So no matter what, we all have things in common more than we have things that we don't agree on. And that's even more true today.
Absolutely. Yes. And if you want, for those that are watching this and they want to get more perspective onto this story, please check out the book Song of Hummingbird Highway. And please be on the lookout for the future stuff that Cam Cookies is going to be releasing, especially the audiobook. But again, Cam, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, really means a lot.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I love BookBase and I hope you grow exponentially as equal to your passion.
Thank you. Thank you.